In the headlines, Trump holds back. U.S. President Donald Trump says it's not the right time for a ceasefire, warning his position will only grow tougher in the months ahead. Tehran and Moscow tightens the bond. Iran and Russia pledged deeper cooperation, defying sanctions and building new economic alliances. Venezuela flexes military muscle, launching massive drills in the Caribbean as U.S. warships lurk offshore. France erupts. Tear gas and clashes happen as a wave of anti-austerity strikes spreads under the rallying cry to block everything. Back here at home, outrage echoes. Retired military officers and former officials speak out against corruption, warning they can no longer tolerate impunity. We'll delve more on this later. On disputed waters, the renowned Victor Gao cautions the Philippines against becoming a U.S. proxy in its standoff with Beijing. Along the Thai-Cambodian border, tensions flare again. Bangkok accuses Phnom Penh of endangering civilians as a long-simmering dispute boils over. And in the world of sports, LeBron James brushes off retirement talk as he gears up for season 23 in the NBA. I'm Prince Tripoli. Newsline World starts now. U.S. President Donald Trump says he's yet to push for a ceasefire in Ukraine, insisting the timing isn't right. He warned his stance will get tougher down the road. Franco Baranda reports.
On Air Force One, Trump brushed aside a reporter's question about peace talks after his face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin in Alaska last August.
Doesn't feel like it, but at the right time, if I have to do it, it'll be harsh.
Trump acknowledged peace will be harder to negotiate than he once thought. In London, during a joint press conference with Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer, he said Putin had really let him down.
The one that I thought would be easiest would be because of my relationship with President Putin, but he's let me down. He's really let me down. It was going to be Russia and Ukraine, but we'll see how that turns out.
Trump also warned Moscow of new major sanctions, but only if NATO allies cut off Russian oil. On social media, the U.S. president earlier insisted the conflict is Biden's and Zelensky's war, not his. Moscow quickly seized on the shift. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Trump has moved away from demanding an immediate ceasefire and is now talking about a longer-term solution. Ukraine has flatly rejected Russia's conditions, including recognizing new borders and abandoning its NATO bid. Reporting for Newsline World, Franco Baranda, SMNI News.
Russia brushes off Ukraine's latest push for peace talks. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is rejecting President Vladimir Zelensky's calling for an unconditional truce, calling it nothing more than a performance. Paul Montibon tells us more.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov dismissed Zelensky's push for talks, accusing him of using the war as a stage. He claimed the Ukrainian president wants to sign in camouflage rather than negotiate seriously.
Зеленский, заставляет всех еще затрагивать тему переговоров. Вот перемирие и сразу встречи, без предварительных условий. Расчет только на то, чтобы очередной цирковой номер сыграть, показать, как Зеленский, такой мужественный, в камуфляже, с бородой, начинает учить жизни президента Путина или кого-то. Ему важно на сцене просверкать. Мы на это пойти не можем.
Lavrov also commented on President Trump's frustration with this slow-moving conflict, suggesting Trump expects quick solutions to global disputes, something Lavrov says Ukraine won't deliver. The Russian minister accused Europe of trying to drag Washington back into what he called Biden's war. and warned they now want to turn it into Trump's war too.
Европейцы не скрывали того, что они будут и отговаривают в любом случае. Они публично отговаривали и отговаривают руководство Соединенных Штатов от каких-либо конструктивных действий в отношении России в контексте украинского кризиса. Хотят они, да, хотят вернуть Соединенные Штаты на ту скользкую стезю, которой они следовали при Байдене, когда это была война Байдена. Они хотят сделать, чтобы это была еще и война Трампа. Они этого не скрывают.
Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Paul Montebon, SMNA News.
Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian welcomed Russian Energy Minister Sergei Tushvelev in Tehran recently, reaffirming both countries committing to strengthening strategic ties in the face of Western sanctions. The two shook hands before entering talks, attended by senior officials from both sides. The president of Iran stressed that Tehran is prioritizing the implementation of agreements already concluded with Moscow, noting that all necessary infrastructure for cooperation is now in place. He declared that joint progress by Iran and Russia demonstrates the era of unilateralism is over and that development is possible without reliance on Western powers. Russia's energy minister, for his part, says the two sides remain in constant contact to push forward the agreements and that sanctions will not obstruct their long-term strategic partnership. The meeting comes as Russia and Iran deepen economic and energy cooperation, seeking alternatives to Western markets and financial systems. Venezuelan forces launched large-scale joint exercises near La Ochila Island this week, showcasing land, sea, and air power in a display of readiness following the deployment of U.S. warships off its coast. Jane Kudnita for the details.
The Sovereign Caribbean 200 campaign entered its second day, bringing together tanks, aircraft, naval vessels, and ground troops in coordinated maneuvers around the Antonio Diaz Naval Air Base. The extensive operation includes soldiers and equipment mobilized across the island's Caribbean backdrop. According to the Venezuelan Armed Forces, the drills involved 12 warships, 22 aircraft, amphibious vehicles, air defense systems, and more than 2,300 troops. Civilian fishing boats manned by volunteer militia members have also been enlisted to participate. The exercises, which will continue until Friday, come amid heightened tensions with Washington. Since August, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has accused the United States of escalating aggression through the deployment of warships, submarines, missiles, and aircraft to the Southern Caribbean, moves Washington maintains are part of anti-narcotics operations. Maduro has responded with sweeping military mobilizations, framing the U.S. presence as a direct threat to Venezuelan sovereignty. This has been Jane Kudnita, your global citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Up next, outrage echoes across the Philippines. Retired military officers and former officials speak out against corruption, warning they can no longer tolerate impunity. We'll delve more on this later. And on disputed waters, the renowned Victor Gao cautions the Philippines against becoming a U.S. proxy in its standoff with Beijing. Newsline World will be back after the break.
Sa kabila ng mga mas modernong kaalaman at teknolohiya, nananatiling matindi ang banta ng HIV sa Pilipinas. Pero gaano nga ba kalala ang sitwasyon? Ang HIV o Human Immunodeficiency Virus ay isang sakit na sumisira sa immune system ng katawan. Ngunit tandaan, hindi ito nakukuha sa simpleng pakikisalamuha. Hindi mo agad mararamdaman, pero unti-unti nitong pinapahina ang katawan. At kapag hindi naagapan, humahantong ito sa AIDS, ang huling yugto na impeksyon, kung saan halos wala ng panlaban ng katawan laban sa sakit. Patuloy na dumadami ang kaso ng sakit na ito sa Pilipinas. Isang nakababahalang pagtaas, umabot na sa 500% ang itinaas ng HIV cases sa mga kabataang edad 15 hanggang 25. Ayon mismo sa Department of Health, 56 na bagong kaso ang naitatala kada araw sa bansa mula Enero hanggang Marso 2025. At ang pinakamatinding apektado, ang kalalakihan at kabataang Pilipino. Dahil dito, ang Pilipinas na ngayon ang may pinakamataas na bilang ng bagong kaso ng HIV sa buong Western Pacific region. Isang indikasyon ng lumulubahang sitwasyon. Kaya nananawagan ng Department of Health gawing opisyal at urgent ang laban sa HIV sa pamamagitan ng isang Public Health Emergency Declaration. Kalalakihan ng pangunahing apektado, 95% ng bagong kaso ay lalaki. Mahigit 1/4 ay kabataang nasa edad 15 hanggang 24. Habang wala pang deklarasyon, patuloy ang DOH sa mga sumusunod na hakbang: HIV testing, libreng gamot, self-test kits, at pakikipagtulungan sa DepEd para sa edukasyon sa mga paaralan. Isinulong rin ng DOH ang online patient appointment system para sa HIV patients. Layunin nitong gawing mas madali at mas personal ang pag-access sa libreng gamutan at konsultasyon. Ayon sa schedule ng pasyente, ang HIV ay hindi tulad ng flu. Hindi ito basta naipapasa sa hangin. Ito ay naipapasa sa pamamagitan ng personal na desisyon. Kailangan din nating pagtuunan ng pansin ang ugali, disiplina, at personal na responsibilidad. Isang paalala mula sa SMNI.
And we're back. An Asian analyst is warning the Philippines against over-relying on the United States in its dispute over the West Philippine Sea. MJ Mondihar will give us more details.
At a recent Manila Forum for China-Philippine Relations, Victor Gao, Vice President of the Center for China Globalization, has a warning on the rising tensions in the region and the importance of balanced diplomacy. According to him, it will not benefit the Philippines to choose one ally and treat the other as an enemy.
Be friendly with the United States and be friendly with China. It will be suicidal if you want to be friend with one and an enemy with the other.
Gao stressed that the world is now on the brink of peace and war, especially with the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. He also warned that the United States is allegedly using the Philippines and Taiwan as proxies to provoke tensions in the Asia-Pacific region. He added that America will not directly engage in war, but it is continuously encouraging confrontation against China through the South China Sea issue. The U.S. is also said to be exploiting the Taiwan issue against a one-China policy.
They want to turn the Philippines into a proxy. They want to push the Philippines to the forefront, to instigate a war between China and the Philippines in the South China Sea. The casualties will be either the Chinese on the Chinese side or the Filipinos on the Filipino side. That would be very, very dangerous. There is another potential proxy. That is the separatists in Taiwan. The Americans want to push the separatists in Taiwan to the forefront, to instigate a war between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait.
According to experts, just as the United States used Ukraine as a proxy against Russia, the same could happen to the Philippines if it continues to allow such a setup. The central flashpoint, the disputed territory in the South China Sea.
If you fight a war, you will have MAD, mutually assured destruction. So anyone trying to instigate a war between China and the United States may force mankind to stare into Armageddon right away.
Meanwhile, in his speeches and official statements, President Marcos Jr. repeatedly said that the country's rights in the South China Sea cannot be surrendered. Malacanang emphasized that the Philippines' position is anchored in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and on the 2016 arbitral award in favor of the country. Nevertheless, the administration maintains its commitment to diplomacy and dialogue. It is also working to sustain balanced relations. Friends with the United States, friends with China, but without being used in their conflict. Earlier, the United States military presence in the Philippines increased under the Marcos Jr. government through the EDCA sites. but China strongly opposed it, saying that the new EDCA locations are part of Washington's military strategy and could be used against them. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been MJ Mondihar, SMNI News.
Taiwan's biggest defense industry and aerospace exhibition opens, drawing hundreds of companies and thousands of visitors to the Nangang Exhibition Center. Almar Fusuelo files this report.
The three-day showcase features nearly 500 exhibitors and more than 1,500 booths displaying advanced drones, armored vehicles, tanks, and next-generation weaponry. Visitors were seen exploring cutting-edge systems with military officials on hand to highlight new technology. Defense Minister Wellington Koo said Taiwan's security lies in close cooperation with the United States, pledging to boost local production and adopt new technologies to strengthen the island's combat readiness. He also assured the public that monitoring of the Taiwan Strait remains tight. Representing Washington, Acting Director of the American Institute in Taiwan, Karen Lang, reaffirmed U.S. support, noting that partnerships between Taiwanese and American firms are vital for maintaining regional stability.
When American and Taiwan companies collaborate, they create solutions that enhance not just bilateral interests, but contribute to broader regional security and prosperity. Looking at the global landscape, we face unprecedented challenges. Supply chain vulnerabilities, technological competition, evolving security threats require us to work even more closely with trusted partners.
The fair coincides with the passage of the U.S. National Defense Authorization Act in the House of Representatives, allocating nearly $900 billion for next year's military budget, with up to $1 billion designated for Taiwan security cooperation. Industry leaders welcome the government's backing. Tron Futures CEO Wang Yu-ju said official support is helping local firms scale up production and cut costs, while Aragon Shan of Dragonfly Unmanned Aircraft Systems pointed to new opportunities for cooperation with partners in the US and Europe. Taiwan has pledged to increase defense spending to 5% of GDP by 2030, a rise from 3.3% in 2026. Beijing, meanwhile, continues to claim sovereignty over the island under its One China policy. The exhibition will run through Saturday. Reporting for Newsline World, Almar Forsualo, SMNI News.
Retired military officers and former officials are speaking out, expressing deep dismay over growing corruption. A former AFP chief says veterans can no longer tolerate the lack of accountability and waste of public funds. MJ Mondihar reports exclusive.
Maraming organization sa military, mayroong Association of Generals and Flag Officers, mga star rank officers. Mayroon ding luwakan graduates, mga PMA graduates. Mayroon ding forum ng PMA Alumni Association. Mayroon ding Star Forum. Napakarami sa military.
Nearly all the groups mentioned by retired General Hermogenes Esperon Jr. are furious over the ongoing corruption. In an exclusive SMNI News interview, Esperon reveals that retired officers are actively involved in commenting and participating in national affairs. He singled out retired officers and members who graduated from the Philippine Military Academy as particularly enraged.
Kaya kung nakikita namin ang malawakang korupsyon, talagang nagagalit kami. Nakatulad din ng ibang Pilipino. At ngayon sa nangyayaring ito, I think many of us will be leading their organizations to go up in protest.
Active service members respect the sacrifices and service of retired officers and members of the armed forces. Usually, veterans do not immediately intervene in political matters. But Esperon said they cannot remain silent on the issue of ghost flood control projects funded with billions of pesos. There are also reports of kickbacks that trim project budgets, resulting in substandard work and other irregularities under the Marcos Jr. administration. According to the Department of Finance, estimated losses to the National Treasury from ghost flood control projects reached 118.5 billion pesos from 2023 to 2025.
Ngayon lang ako nakakita ng ganito na napakalaki na nga ng kanilang kinikita at kinukurapot sa pamamagitan ng substandard projects. Nagawa pa nilang gumawa ng projects na ghost at ipinagmamayabang pa nila yung kanilang mga nakurakot.
Esperon admitted that retired officers hold different political stances, but they are free to decide whether to be vocal or to remain silent on issues. But he said the PMA taught them to stand for what is right and to correct society's wrongs.
Kaming taga-PMA, marami kaming grupo ngayon na nagiging hindi lang sumasali, kundi magli-lead ng aming mga grupo upang sumama sa protesta groups. At hindi kami titigil sa protesta lang. Kailangan may managot, kailangan makuha natin yung kanilang mga kayamanan na illegal na nakuha para ibalik sa Pilipino, para ibalik sa kaban ng bayan.
Reporting for Newsline World, this has been MJ Mondihar, SMNI News.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa welcomed his Congolese counterpart Felix Tshisekedi to Pretoria for a working visit aimed at strengthening ties between the two nations. The Congolese president's motorcade arrived at the Union Buildings, where he was received by Ramaphosa. The two leaders posed for photographs before proceeding to one-on-one discussions. Their talks centered on deepening economic and security cooperation, as well as coordinating positions on key regional and international issues. The meeting came shortly after Tshisekedi declined an invitation to attend a regional summit on the crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo, or DRC. The event brought together representatives of the M23 militant group and other opposition factions. South Africa and the DRC shared long-standing political and economic ties, with South Africa playing a central role in regional peace and mediation efforts. Colombian families are holding funerals and protests as more nationals killed or missing in Ukraine return home, raising pressure on the government to respond. Let's find out more about their story from Jillian Gutierrez.
In Caucas, Yanacona Indigenous Reserve, the body of Elder Zemanati Mamian, killed while fighting as a mercenary in Ukraine, was laid to rest. Relatives and neighbors received his coffin in a traditional ceremony. In Bogota, families of Colombians killed or missing rallied outside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs demanding answers. Luis Ramirez, father of missing fighter Michael Ramirez Fino, said his son left a small business after being recruited with promises of high pay. He was last reported rescuing comrades under fire before being declared missing in action.
Entonces, pues ahí estamos a la espera de noticias. No hay nada, uno llama y no, nadie da razón. Nadie da razón, nada. No están desaparecidos, la condición es desaparecido en combate nomás. Nos informamos más a través del grupo que lo que pueden hacer allá la gente.
Other survivors described coercion and discrimination within Ukrainian forces. Former fighter Yison Sanchez Murillo alleged that the Colombians had their passports confiscated, were punished for refusing missions, and were left behind in combat while Ukrainians received protection.
Se ve el racismo allá en el país porque nosotros no valemos nada para ellos. Tú entras a una operación con 4 ucranianos y nosotros entras 12 colombianos y 4 ucranianos. Cuando empieza Rusia a atacarte con drones, el mismo ejército ucraniano manda una tanqueta a retirar a los 4 ucranianos y quedan los colombianos allá, en medio del conflicto. Y ya, si se pierden los 12 colombianos no pasa nada, pues ya los dan por desaparecidos y es como si no valiéramos nada.
Despite these accounts, high salaries, reportedly up to 16 million pesos a month, continue to attract Colombians to the conflict. Families said promises of compensation or asylum remained unfulfilled. With coffins arriving and protests growing, calls are mounting for the Colombian government to take a position on the recruitment and deaths of its citizens in Ukraine. Jillian Gutierrez, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Tear gas and street clashes in France as the country is hit by a wave of anti-austerity protests under the rallying cry, "Block everything." Daniela Polita has the story.
Thousands of protesters marched through Lyon, joining a nationwide strike against French government budget cuts and labor reforms. Police chased demonstrators, deploying tear gas as protesters hurled explosives and projectiles. 3 people were hurt, including a journalist treated on site and 2 riot officers, one of whom lost a tooth. French police say 3 arrests were made. In central Lyon, protesters lit flares, carried placards rating austerity kills while billionaires thrive, and on the way to a dictatorship. The march ended at Belcourt Square. Across France, unions estimate 1 million people joined the strike. Authorities put the figure closer to 500,000. The unrest comes as President Emmanuel Macron's new Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, struggles to balance the budget and respond to public anger over spending cuts. He has promised more talks with unions in the days ahead. He also pledged to reopen negotiations, saying workers' concerns would remain at the heart of government consultations. Reporting for Newsline World, Daniela Paulita, SMNI News.
The president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, condemned the United States' decision to decertify its compliance with anti-drug commitments, calling the move an injustice. He also warned that Bogota will not tolerate foreign interference. This report from Joy Tabanao.
President Gustavo Petro pushed back strongly after the United States removed Colombia from the list of nations certified in the fight against drug trafficking. He described the move as unjust, saying Colombia has sacrificed the most lives in the region's battle against cocaine.
Y me refiero básicamente a lo que considero una injusticia, una grosería profunda contra el país que más sangre ha regado para que la sociedad de los Estados Unidos y de Europa no consuman tanta cocaína.
Petro also rejected any external interference in national policy, stressing that Washington should instead focus on fentanyl deaths inside the U.S., which he argued proves the failure of decades of American anti-drug strategy.
¿Qué está demostrando esto, señor Trump? Que toda su política antidrogas de hace 50 años fracasó. Fracasó. Le repito de nuevo, fracasó. Su guerra fue derrotada por la mafia y el narcotráfico.
UN data show Colombia's cocaine production jumped by more than 50%, according to its latest report. The U.S. State Department said President Donald Trump determined Colombia did not meet its commitments, but granted a waiver to keep cooperation and aid flowing. Joy Tabanao, your global citizen correspondent reporting for Newsline World.
In Argentina, tens of thousands of people celebrated outside Congress after lawmakers overturned President Javier Milei's vetoes on health and education measures. This report. Social, labor, and student groups joined pensioners and disability organizations at Plaza del Congreso in Buenos Aires, waving flags, carrying banners, and chanting against Milei's government. Demonstrators celebrated the Chamber of Deputies' decision to overturn Milei's veto on declaring a pediatric emergency with 181 votes and his veto on university funding with 174 votes. Both measures now head to the Senate, where a similar outcome is expected.
Es un golpe muy duro para el gobierno, aún peor que las elecciones, que ya fue un golpe durísimo. Y ver acá a tanta gente reunida de todos los sectores que se están atacando, el sector de salud, el sector de discapacidad, los jubilados, los estudiantes y los obreros, es un golpe durísimo para el gobierno. Fuera Milei.
The protest was spearheaded by major unions and retirees groups, with professors and students in attendance. Organizers accused Milei of undermining public services and warned of the dangers of dismantling the state.
Mira, el gobierno no cree en la educación pública ni en la salud pública y evidentemente vino a hacer lo que dijo que era romper el Estado, es el topo que vino a romper el Estado. Podemos estar en desacuerdo en muchas cosas, pero me parece que la salud y la educación es un bien para todos. Y es de las pocas cosas en donde todos los argentinos nos podemos dar un abrazo.
As the crowd filled the streets with drums, puppets, and placards, protesters vowed to keep mobilizing against Milei's agenda. The Philippine government deported a total of 103 Chinese nationals after Beijing arrested in various operations across the country this Friday. These Chinese nationals were flown back to Shanghai, China abroad Philippine Airlines flight PR336, which deported at 10:40 in the morning from Ninoy Aquino International Airport Terminal 1. According to the Presidential Anti-Organization Crime Commission, or PAOCC, 101 of them were involved in illegal offshore gaming and different types of fraud, while 2 were apprehended for illegal mining. The deportees were arrested in separate operations conducted by various government agencies in Pasay and Parañaque City, Binyan in Laguna, Lapu-Lapu City and Cebu, as well as in Pampanga and Tarlac. This is part of the government's intensified campaign against foreign criminals in the country, in line with the President's directive to ban pogos and dismantle crime syndicates based here. The government assured that operations will continue as long as there is foreign nationals violating the law and threatening public safety. A border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia is heating up again, with Bangkok accusing Phnom Penh of putting civilians at risk. Anissa de Guzman reports.
Sticks, stones, and slingshots. A border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia has once again turned violent. Thai officials say Cambodian demonstrators crossed into Sakya province on Wednesday, tearing down barricades meant to mark Thai territory. The crowds, some armed with wooden sticks and slingshots, confronted Thai personnel as the two sides clashed in the Koksang district. Bangkok accuses Cambodia of endangering its own civilians to encroach on Thai soil. Phnom Penh, meanwhile, says 23 Cambodians were injured in the violence. The clash marks the most serious escalation since a fragile ceasefire ended deadly fighting in July. Cambodia's Prime Minister Hun Manet has already appealed to ASEAN and the United Nations, seeking urgent support to defuse the standoff. I'm Anissa de Guzman, your global citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. welcomed Abdullah Nasser Muhammad Lutha, United Arab Emirates Deputy Minister of Cabinet Affairs for Competitiveness and Experience Exchange during a courtesy call at Malacanang Palace in Manila. Deputy Minister Lutha, here in the country leading the UAE delegation to the Philippines UAE Government Experience Exchange Forum held from September 16 to 18. The forum, jointly organized by the Department of Budget and Management and the UAE Ministry of Cabinet Affairs, serves as a platform to foster cooperation and share best practices in governance between the two nations. Marcos Jr. expressed his gratitude to the UAE government for its continued support of Filipino workers in the United Arab Emirates and for recognizing the Philippines as a valuable partner in collaborative initiatives. In response, Deputy Minister Lutha reaffirmed the UAE's commitment to deepening bilateral relations with the Philippines. He highlighted the significance of the ongoing forum as a means to cultivate innovative, future-ready governance and further solidify cooperation. And for our latest sports update, LeBron James is gearing up for the 23rd year in the NBA. And he says he's not done just yet, while Olympic champion Kelly Hunkinson made a confident start to her world title campaign. Carla Peña has more.
Speculation about retirement grew after the Lakers star was seen taking up golf. But James clarified during his Nike tour in China that his new hobby doesn't mean he's leaving basketball. He admitted he's nearing the end of his career but stressed he's still locked in for now, saying, "Retirement is coming, it's just not here yet." James is already tied for the second longest NBA career in history, and if he plays through the 2025 to 2026 season, he'll set a new record with 23 years on the court. Last season, the four-time champion averaged 24 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists, proving he's still among the league's elite. Training camps open later this month, with LeBron once again ready to lead the Lakers. Meanwhile, 23-year-old Olympic champion Keely Hutchinson is competing at the same stadium where she won Olympic silver as a teenager. She cruised to victory with a time of 1:59.79. Hutchinson is chasing her first world crown after battling back from 2 hamstring injuries. She will be joined in the semis by training partner Georgia Hunterbell, who switched focus from the 1,500 meters and impressed with a winning time of 1:58.82. Both athletes are eyeing a potential British 1-2 finish, though strong challenges remain from defending champion Mary Mora of Kenya, Ethiopia's Chige Duguma, and Swiss runner Audrey Wero. Elsewhere, Amber Anning placed 5th in the women's 400-meter final, won by American star Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone in 47.78 seconds, the second fastest time ever. Britain's Dina Asher-Smith, Zarnell Hughes, and Amy Hunt also reached their respective 200-meter finals, with Hunt setting a personal best of 22.08. In other British results, Max Bergen qualified for the men's 800-meter final, while high jumper Morgan Lake cleared 1.92 meters to secure her place in the final. Hannah Nuttall also advanced to the 5,000-meter final. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Carlo De La Peña bringing you the latest sports news.
Monkeys at Bioparque de Rio enjoyed popsicles and frozen fruit as zookeepers introduced a cooling initiative during the summer heat of Free Ice Cream Day. The zookeepers prepared different recipes for various species. Fruit-eating primates were given frozen blends of pineapple, watermelon, and grapes, while other species received vegetable-based mixtures. Some monkeys consumed the treats immediately, while others carried them away to break apart before eating. Cooling interventions such as frozen food, shaded areas, and water sprays are essential to animal health. These help reduce heat stress, improve comfort, and minimize the risks associated with high temperatures. The frozen treats also serve as enrichment for animals, giving them opportunities to interact with their environment in more engaging ways. Monitoring the monkeys' behavior allows keepers to refine enclosure design, microhabitat cooling, and daily care routines. The initiative provided both a welfare benefit for the animals and an engaging experience for visitors. And before we end, may we be inspired with the words of the song. Winning and losing begin in the mind, and your mind is the womb of your faith. And as we keep track on the countdown, there's only 97 days left before Christmas. And that's all for today's edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Prince Tripoli. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.